Experience the joy of watching your friends and family's faces light up when you feed them wild game you harvested and made into delicious sausages, or meat you barbecue and grill with the finest seasonings available. Visit our friends at waltons.com to find everything you need to turn wild game into tasty meat snacks, or spice up your barbecue with new flavors and seasonings. With over 500 seasonings to choose from, there's something that everyone will love. They even have step-by-step videos and how-to articles at Meatgistics to help you go from animal to edible. Use coupon Rangers15 at checkout, save 15% on your first order at waltons.com. Waltons, everything but the meat.
The Ranger Report. Yeah, the Ranger Report. If you want the inside scoop, listen to the Ranger Report. Oh, here we go.
This is the Ranger Report podcast. News, insights, predictions, interviews, and information about the Texas Rangers from the major leagues to the minor leagues. And now, here are your hosts, Ben Dieter and CJ Berryman.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Ranger Report podcast. CJ has the night off, and tonight we're doing something a little bit different. We are talking to, we've talked to Kane McCutchen a lot of different times, but we're also talking to Ayden Church. Kane, Ayden, how are you guys doing?
Doing pretty good, man.
Good to have you guys on. So, Kane, let's start with you. Why don't we talk a little bit about what you are doing now that we're here to talk about tonight?
Yeah, so along with my beat reporting for the Rangers and the Wings, me and Ayden are doing our own podcast. So this is different than sports. So this is anyone can get into this, but it's kind of a lifestyle reality podcast where we're just kind of talking about anything and everything. Like we've gone pretty in depth on like my college process. We talked last time, we talked about video games. We're planning on talking about food. So it's just anything and everything that anyone can get into.
Yeah, those kind of podcasts are fun. I've always wanted to start one, but I've just never had time. I've always wanted to do a non-sports related podcast, but I never have. But talk a little bit about how you two sort of got this started, what gave you the idea, and why you just wanted to do a general podcast.
Yeah, so Ayden, you want this one?
Yeah, so basically how it kind of started off was, obviously we've been hanging out for a long time, but it kind of started off with just basketball, which is like one of the biggest things we had in common. So we started off with just sports, but eventually I think that we kind of got burnt out on that. And so we thought, like, how can we make it about us? Like, how can we have a good time without like just talking about things that aren't us the whole time? Like, how can we make it more personal?
Yeah, and I think the whole personal podcast thing is great. CJ and I try to be personable on this, but it always comes back around to sports and specifically the Rangers on this podcast. I did one years ago that was just general sports, and it was a longer formatted podcast. So it was about an hour and 10 minutes per episode. And we did a lot of goofing off and fooling around, and it was a lot of fun. So do you guys do a lot of that, or is it more serious topics?
Oh, all the time goofing around. We literally, when we're just talking on the phone, that was one of our goals too, is like, we have really good conversations on the phone. So we're like, why not take that to a podcast? So we can be serious when we need to be, but it's a lot of goofing around. We have a good time. So
I mean, as far in the future, sorry about that. I think
go ahead, man.
To get more serious in like certain aspects, but at the end of the day, we always want to make it about just like having a good time and just like kind of forgetting about your problems and just going somewhere where you can have a good time.
Yeah, and that's cool. So the good thing about that is you can, hit a serious topic on one and then turn around and do something fun on the next one. But, there are so many things out there to talk about. And that's why I love the fact that you guys are doing this podcast. It's great that, topics, it's crazy. You're about to go off to college. Ayden, I don't know. Are you in college yet? How old are you?
I'm a junior in high school right now.
You're a junior in high school. Okay. So yeah, so you guys are both futures coming up. You got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on in the world that people, just have, and you guys know you're both on Twitter, have very strong opinions over. So, that kind of stuff is always kind of fun to talk about. And I've always enjoyed podcasts where guys just kind of start off with sort of a loose topic and just get going. And so how's it going for you? How do you guys feel like it's going so far?
I think it's going pretty good. We're fresh into it. We've hit a little, in our personal lives, I've hit a couple road bumps recently, but It's going pretty good. We're still fresh into it, like I said, but we're really building it up, and I'm liking where it's going.
Yeah, at least with the road bumps, it's just like I feel like a lot of times, like you hit those road bumps, you almost like give up. But I think what we're trying to do is just like keep going the whole way through. Like we're going through with this.
Yeah, and that's cool because you guys can. And the thing about a general podcast, you're both sports fans. You can still talk about sports. You don't have to like avoid the subjects. You can do that, but you can segue into other topics. Like Kane and I were just talking about off air. It's kind of hard to do a Rangers podcast right now because they're dreadfully bad, and you know it's hard to find happy things to talk about. You know, it's almost like just the once a week people get to listen to be depressed. And, you know, that's not what we want, but the fact that you guys are doing your own thing is really cool. So was it just something that you really wanted to do, both of you? Or is it like, was it a long-term thought process, or did you just kind of go, I think I'm going to do this, and then you hit it?
I would say it was, I think we can kind of do this and hit it. We were doing YouTube, we were doing sports YouTube, and it was how this kind of started was talking on the phone, was like, we both had this idea in our head for a while and didn't come to, we were like, we have something left in the tank. Like, we're not done. And so we were like, you know what, let's just go for it. So we kind of just did it. We knew how to start a podcast, and we just went for it.
I think one thing too, is that me and him, like on screen, I think we always like just clicked with the conversations, but like, it was never really enough for us to like be super into it. So it was almost like, how can we take it to the next level to where it's something that like we look forward to every single day? Because it's sometimes it's hard to look forward to sports all the time. Like, we love sports obviously, but like it's a lot of research. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of stuff you got to look into to do all that.
Yeah, when you get to do one over just stuff that's going on in your life, you know, whether you wanted to or not, you already have information on that because whatever's happening to you is what you're thinking about and what you're talking about. And that does make it a whole lot easier. So, well, we haven't mentioned it off the top yet, but let's say, what is the name of the podcast?
So the name of our podcast is the Kane and Ayden Pod. Ayden, if you want to tell them the story, like kind of behind our logo a little bit, because I know people, we have a pretty cool logo.
We've had the same logo for a while now. We actually had it from when we did sports. So what it is, it's a basketball, like it's like in a hoop or whatever, but it has a bite taken out of it. So it's almost like a Bible reference to like Cain and Abel, you know, because like Cain. So, and then people always make jokes about like Kane and Ayden, like it sounds a little similar. So we've been getting that a lot.
Yeah,
that's kind of inspiration behind it.
Well, that's cool. And I'll link the podcast in the description and put your logo in there so people can see it too. So, so you're a senior in high school. You're a junior in high school. You guys have a lot coming up. You know where you're going to college. We announced that on one of our live shows. So Kane knows where he's going to college. So what coming up do you guys think some topics you guys are going to talk about are going to be, or do you literally just wing it when it comes time to do a show?
I would say a lot of times we do wing it, like, but I think we are going to be looking forward to just talking about college. I really want to provide a accurate description of that. And I've kind of tried to be super, because I know a lot of times I've said, oh yeah, my process to DBU was super easy, but it really was. I want to be real with that so people can know. But a lot of times, I mean, I think we do just wing it. Like I talked about my recent encounter with a Detroit Tigers fan at the Ranger game. If y'all didn't hear about that, it was pretty interesting. And we just kind of go with the flow.
A lot of times it's like we kind of figure out like the day before, like we have like a basis. So like our last episode, we talked about like our favorite like video games of all time. So we started off with like, okay, video games, but then we talked like a day before and I'm just like, dude, you got to hear about this. What happened at work? And then boom, we'll talk about that on the episode.
For sure.
You know, that reminds me, non-sports. I know I'm an old man, but non-sports. I grew up playing the Final Fantasy franchise. And I still play the old ones on my phone. They made apps for them, and I still play them literally to this day. And I told a couple friends I'm thinking about starting a YouTube channel where I do playthroughs of the old Final Fantasy games. So,
oh yeah, there you go. That would be good.
As long as I don't have to show my face, because people will be like, "No, I'm not watching an old dude play." They think
you got the beard trimmed up though for the first time.
Yeah, it's not the gigantic thing I used to have going on for sure. So no, that's cool. So let's talk a little bit of sports. So Kane, you've talked Rangers with us before, but like you guys are basketball, and do either of you remember the 2011 Mavericks championship?
Oh man. See, I remember where I was at. I do. I was like on vacation. I remember my dad was just yelling, and I was like, "What is going on right now? Like, why are we so happy?" That was my reaction to this one in the finals.
And then we both grew up to become Houston Rockets fans. So,
hey, nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of Mavericks fans that hate the Rockets and Spurs, but I'm other than the Astros, I'm for all Texas teams. And I don't actually hate the Astros. We just kind of have to, you know.
Yeah, I think when you get into this like business industry, kind of, there becomes like people are asking like, who's my favorite player? I'm like, last year I would have given you an answer. This year I don't really have a favorite player.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was going to ask you, which you've noticed too, being in sports media, even though we're at this point, we're amateurs, but we're still doing it, weekly, and we're still covering games. It changes the way you look at baseball games. Like the last game I covered, it looked like it was going to get tied going into the ninth. And I was up there with everyone else thinking the same thing. Please don't tie it. I don't want to go into extra innings. I have a 2-hour drive back home. I don't want to be here all night. Whereas as a fan, I loved longer baseball games.
Oh, me too. The off season, absolutely hated the off season every season. For that, this season, I'm so excited for the off season. Couldn't be more excited.
That is true. So, Ayden, did you grow up a Rangers fan?
I don't really grow up a big baseball fan, but me and Kane, obviously he's a Rangers fan, so we've talked about him over the years, and I always kind of messed around with him about the Rangers.
Well, the last 6 or 7 years, it's been easy to do.
I'm just like, oh, they suck or whatever. The Astros are better. Even though I don't like the Astros either, but it's easy to pick on them for it.
No, it definitely is that for sure. So, all right, well, let's see. What else can we discuss? This is cool. I'm glad you guys are doing this. And like I said, people need to go check it out. Are you guys on all the platforms out there?
Yeah, we're pretty much everywhere, man. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your stuff, as I'm sure y'all are too. Yeah. We're pretty much everywhere.
You guys on YouTube as well, you said?
We're not on YouTube yet.
Okay.
That might be something we think about in the future, maybe going to YouTube, but we're not on YouTube yet.
We are, but ours is a auto post with just the words on it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, it's good stuff that we got going on. We're planning on getting some interviews going too. So just kind of talking. But one thing I like about this is we don't have to interview people with connections to sports.
Yeah.
We can interview anybody and everybody. We can have our family members on and talk to them about what's their favorite experiences with us and just stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's the cool thing about what y'all are doing is you're literally wide open. You can interview anybody that you can get a hold of them that you can get to come on. You guys can talk to them about any topic you'd like. And that does make it a whole lot easier to podcast and to keep it going when really you're not stuck on one topic. The reason that I've stopped this several times over the last decade is I just ran out of things to talk about and got tired of it, but with you guys, you've got every topic on the planet that you guys can discuss if you want to.
Yeah.
One thing I do want to mention is that we were talking about being Rockets fans or whatever. The worst part about being a Rockets fan is that the first time when I first started liking the Rockets, it was bandwagon. And I'm like, I'm not a bandwagon. I just like them, And then now it's they suck. I'm like, oh my God, you never get a break.
No. That is the sports fandom in general, especially on Twitter. I mean, when Josh Young hit a home run for his first at bat and then struck out later, I was wondering how many people on Twitter were going to ask to send him down.
I know Twitter is so bad. That's why, me and some of the other writers, Twitter complains so much about Chris Woodward and John Daniels that now, whenever something goes wrong, we'll be like, "This is still Woody's fault." Right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's always going to be. Actually, I'm surprised it doesn't go back to like Ron Washington's fault.
Yeah, Nolan
Ryan's fault. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this is awesome, guys. It's called the Kane and Ayden Pod. You guys need to check it out if you haven't. Like I said, the link will be in the description of this show on all of our platforms and on YouTube as well. So check them out. Anything else you guys want to tell people before we get off?
Ayden, you got anything?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to listening to them, guys, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys do here in the future. So thanks for coming on tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for listening to the Ranger Report podcast. Find us on Twitter, Facebook, and at therangerreport.com.